Welcome back to another episode of the Educational AD Podcast, brought to you by Violet Defense. Violet Defense is dedicated to protecting our world from germs by bringing the power of UV disinfection to everyday spaces. Their patented technology enables them to harness the power of the sun to incorporate ultraviolet light into products and environments like never before. Whether you're ready to implement existing products, or if you would like to explore researching and developing a custom deployment of the technology for your school, Violet Defense has the solutions and experience you need. Thanks again to Violet Defense for sponsoring the Educational AD Podcast. The FIAAA also wants to thank our great diamond sponsors, including Varsity Brands, featuring BSN, Varsity Spirit, and Herff Jones. Varsity Brands, elevating student experiences in sport, spirit, and achievement. We also want to thank our other great diamond sponsor, Hometown Ticketing. Hometown Ticketing helps thousands of schools across the country seamlessly provide convenient digital ticketing options for their communities, their families, and their fans. Hometown Ticketing, simple and easy online ticketing. We also want to thank our great platinum sponsors, including Ephesus Lighting, innovating a brighter future at every level. Booster Digital Displays, revolutionize your game day experience. Camp Mobile, where leaders communicate better. Vital Signs, bring student achievements to life. Gipper, sports graphics made incredibly simple. Thanks to all of our great sponsors. Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Educational AD Podcast. Our guest today is a good friend, Kinn Ashen. Gene is a certified master athletic administrator, also a longtime member of the NIAAA Board of Directors, very active at the national level. And she's also the director of athletics at North Salinas High School in California. Gene, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks so much for having me, Jake. It's a great privilege and honor to be here today.
Oh, gosh. Well, we've been looking forward to hearing what's going on in your part of the country. Gene, we always like to let our listeners have a chance to get to know our guests. So tell us a little bit about yourself, where you grew up, where you went to college, and maybe how your love of sports led to this career in educational athletics.
Yeah, it definitely is a labor of love, that is for sure. But I am a Salinas native, oldest of five. This is my alma mater, so I am at the school that I attended, which is, I think, one of the most special parts of this job is being a long Viking. I've been a Viking now. I graduated from here in 1976. And my first day of high school, a woman walked up to me and she grabbed me by the arm, dragged me into the girls' locker room, and she put up her hand and she said, "Look what I found." And that was my introduction to education-based athletics. And that is why I think the locker room has been such a special place for me with all athletics. But played lots of sports when I was growing up. I was a monkey bar kid. Loved to go on the monkey bars and play. And, you just left your house during the day, came home at dark.
Oh, yeah.
But Title IX passed in 1972, and I really believe that changed the trajectory of my life. And I said to the woman here, Miss Maycumber, in my freshman year of high school, "I'm going to have your job someday." And I think that has always been something that I hold very close to my heart. Our school is the same age as me at 62 years old. Our high school is a place for me of love and comfort and just a place to really hold special in my heart. And I had some wonderful coaches here, some wonderful mentors here. And as a senior in high school, I was recruited to go to Cal State Fullerton, and the Olympics had just finished in Montreal in 1976, and Billy Moore was the coach. And I was recruited to Cal State Fullerton. Back then, it was AIAW. There was no women's in the NC2A yet. And so you had to try out for the team. So I was one of three freshmen who made the varsity team at Cal State Fullerton. We actually played against UCLA in the finals, Annie Meyer's Drysdale's team, and we beat them to go to the national tournament in Minnesota my freshman year. And that really set my path of the love of basketball. So I stayed at Cal State Fullerton for 3 years, and our coach left. Billy had left after my freshman year, and then I said, you could transfer back then and play. Again, no NC2A, and went to UNLV and loved it. Got to watch some amazing basketball practices. I was watching Jerry Tarkanian and Tim Gergerich in the gym, watching just amazing basketball. And that's when I really fell in love with coaching. And so I stayed on. I became kind of the grunt. I swept the floor, picked up the recruits, took them on trips, and got my teaching credential and taught for a couple of years there in Clark County. And a job came open at UC Irvine. And my roommate in college was coaching at USC at the time, and she was going to go to UCLA. And so she said, they have an assistant position open. I thought, might be kind of fun. So I went to spend about 10 years in Southern California and loved coaching, but knew that I would always come back home and knew that I wanted to have a family here in Salinas. And so I met my husband down there. He was coaching men's volleyball. He started the men's program at UC Irvine, and we came back to Salinas in 1992, and we've been back since, and it was the best decision we ever made.
Well, I knew bits and pieces of your past, but what a great story. How cool is that? And again, I can relate a little bit. I was high school class of 75. So I know what you're talking about those days. Curious. I remember when I graduated from college, I worked as a substitute for a couple of years, and I came back to my high school as a substitute. And I remember the looks I would get from some of my old teachers going, you're a teacher, they let you in here. How was that for you coming back to North Salinas? I know it was a few years later, but describe that experience coming back home.
I think it's really interesting because you can't call them by their first name when you first start off, right? So Mrs. Silvera was my athletic director. In 62 years, there have only been 3 women athletic directors at my high school, which I think shows some it shows you the importance of this role and the way that our high school really knows that this is an important position and that they want to have continuity and integrity and all of those things that happen that I think it's hard when you have constant turnover. So when I got back, I was still Jeannie. So everybody who calls me Jeannie knew me in high school. Nobody calls me Jeannie anywhere else. And so it's been very interesting. And there were teachers here for a long time without me, but I wanted to really become part of the staff. So I'm part of the Sunshine Committee and part of that welcoming group. And I love that part because I introduce myself to every new teacher. And then I start talking to them about, hey, what'd you play in high school? What kind of things did you like to do? Because I know that if I kind of hook them a little bit in the summertime, and I really talk to new teachers and new staff about their #1 predictor of success. And I believe that students in high school, their #1 predictor is involvement on campus. It's just simple as that. Whether or not they're a student athlete, if they're in the play, if they're in the band, if they're in ballet folklorico, if they are in student government, whatever they're in, that kid graduates. I tell new teachers that and new staff all the time. I said, if you want to not have any discipline challenges in your classroom, coach, or just come to the football games, or come out to the basketball game, or come to the tennis match. And then the next day when that kid is in your class, say, hey, I was so impressed yesterday with your effort out there on the tennis court. You'll be so surprised what happens to your classroom management. So I think that's one of the things that I really believe in is the more we are involved in what we believe in and what's important for us, the more successful we're going to be. And I preach that with our kids and with our staff all the time.
Oh, you're so right. And I've used those same tricks, techniques, myself, get a kid out to be a manager or a staff person, or now with, get a kid to manage your Twitter account or things like that. And the same thing with teachers, they have those skills, they can be an assistant coach and their title can be, something that isn't involved with X's and O's, but still be a part of the program and still reap all of those benefits in their classroom and personally, it's great for them. Glad to hear you using that. Gene, you've touched a little bit on this next point. In our profession, we always talk about the importance of leadership and particularly mentorship. So I'm curious, who are some of your mentors growing up? You've already, I think, alluded to one in particular, but the expression I like to use is, I still hear those voices in my head. So do you have any voices that you still hear?
Oh, I hear voices all the time, especially the older I get. Again, the women that were here at this site all were incredible role models. But there was a man who was my coach for 1 year. He was actually the wrestling coach. He was the family, I forget what the name of the class was, but the Family Matters class. He was just the kindest. He had 3 daughters that actually went through school after me. And I laugh because in the 70s, he called me the best hooker at North Salinas High School. And today's, when we talk later on about, there's another question you have for me, about social awareness, it probably wouldn't go over well today, but he taught me how to shoot a hook shot. So it was really important for me. He said, at your height, I was only 6'2" then. Now I'm 6'4". So, but I was only 6'2" at the time. He said, a hook shot would be a really great thing to get in your toolbox, right? Something to do. And so those types of things. I had incredible teachers here who encouraged me to think outside the box and to go for anything that I wanted to do. And especially in the 70s as a woman with Title IX just passing, it was a real eye-opening experience. I honestly believe I wouldn't be here talking to you, Jake, unless Title IX had passed. And it kind of makes me sad because we're still talking about it. And I talk to kids, I say to them, let's say you go in your math classroom and there's a book on every other desk. And the teacher says, the boys can sit where there's a book, but the girls can't sit where there's not a book. And I think it's really important for us to remember that historical perspective, but we still continue to have those challenges even in 2021. The other thing I had was amazing principals who said to me, Jean, you can go. And I think today I hear that. It's one of the things I hear from a lot of rookies is, I'm too busy. I can't go to the state conference. I can't go to the local conference. I can't go to the national conference. I'm too busy. The school's going to fall apart. What are my coaches going to do without me? And my first principal at my league commissioner, LG Belizio at the time, who's just an amazing man and made such a difference in my life. He said to my principal, you're going to let her go and you're going to finance her trip too. You are going to show that it's important. And I think when you're often the singleton, right? You're like the band teacher or the drama teacher. There's usually one of them. And so when you're a singleton, you really have to have a voice in the room. And so since day one, since the day I took over, I have been to every state conference, every national conference, and every local section conference here in California. We're so big. We have section conferences now too. And those made the difference for me. And that expanded that mentorship, that collaborative team. It just made such a difference for me because it was like saying, I could pick up the phone and say to Jake, hey, Jake, what do you do when blank? Or what has happened when you've had this? And we often don't have that ability to really share and be collegial because we are so busy. We're always running around and we just don't take the time to interact with others oftentimes because we're by ourselves. And so I think having a principal, having league commissioners, our league now pays. We're a league of 34 schools, pays for our section dues, our state dues, and our NIAAA dues. Those 3 things are paid for by our league membership. So it's tied into, and it sends the message of the importance of professional development. It sends the message of being involved with educational podcasts and things like that, right? It sends that message. So I think that's been really profound for me.
Wow, that last item, what a great benefit and what a great model too for other, states or sections to pick up on. We're gonna have to talk about that some more. Gene, we get a lot of younger ADs and coaches that listen to us. And I think it's important for them to hear the stories of how, let's face it, people like you and I got to where we are, active at the state and national level, CMAAs, et cetera. So very quickly, walk us through that history of your involvement with your state association and up to and including the involvement at the national level.
Yeah, I think that's probably been one of the really exciting pieces of my professional career. So Maria Shida was the CIF commissioner at the time that I became an athletic director, and she lived here in Watsonville. It's about 20 miles outside of Salinas. So I knew of her, she knew of me. And the NFHS needed a committee member on the coaches education committee. It was called the Gatorade committee at the time. And so she called and said, hey, I got a woman that I know that's, she'd probably be fine at doing it. It's a 3-year term on the NFHS. Flew to Chicago, got to see the Gatorade whole facility, went to a Cubs game. I thought, wow, this is the life, and this was the 90s, right? And spent 3 years. And it's interesting, I missed one of the years because 9/11 happened during my term. And so that definitely left an impact on all of us at the time. But I got on that committee and I saw the benefit of hearing from everyone throughout the nation. And I was lucky enough, like I said, my principal, our commissioner, sent us to the conference at CSADA. And at the time, they were looking for a female at-large representative, and they were going to have an election. And so I thought, well, I could put my name into the hat for a female at-large. And I actually won the election. It was the first time I think we had an election. Usually they were fighting over people trying to do it. But there was a couple of us interested, and I won the election, and I've been on the board since then. And then in our section, in Section 7, with California and Arizona, Hawaii, Nevada, and Utah, we rotate onto the NIAAA board every 15 years, since there are 5 of us. So I was, at the time, I thought to myself, there's no way I would ever be on the NIAAA board. I mean, you just look at you would go to the conference and you'd see the blue jacket and you'd go, oh, wow, I wonder what you have to do to wear a blue jacket. And I thought, I live in California. I wear shorts every day, shorts and sneakers. I look professional, but most people can guess that I'm an athletic director. And so when we started to have the conversations about it, I became the NIAAA liaison. I had an amazing mentor in Herb Meyer, and I became the liaison for California to the NIAAA, and I was selected to be the representative from California to serve on the board. And that 3 years was one of the most special times of my life. Being around passionate, educated, innovative men and women who wanted nothing better than to just make education-based athletics better for student athletes and for coaches and administrators. To be in that boardroom for 3 years changed my life. And it allowed me to make connections throughout the entire United States and to bring back one of the things our commissioner told me, I remember when I was very early on, bring us back. I would be the only one going at the time. Now, almost all of us go, but bring us back what is the newest thing we can do? And I remember sitting in at a national conference where they were talking about breakaway bases and AEDs. And I remember coming back to the district and saying, we need breakaway bases and we need an AED in every single high school. And today, our high school has 3 AEDs in it, and every single high school has an AED, and we have breakaway bases. And so every year I would go and I would bring back to our district for us to stay on the cutting edge. And I think districts are always looking for ways to highlight themselves, right? They're looking for ways to attract teachers, to attract students, to attract all sorts of things, right? To become certified. So when I became certified, they could then say, hey, we have a certified athletic administrator. And then I became a CMAA, and the next. So it's a very ripple effect in especially public school districts who still are looking to recruit student athletes and students. I mean, students, not student athletes, but students to their districts. And so our district has taken great pride in staying on the cutting edge of education-based athletics with the things that we need to do. And it has changed a lot since I started. I used to show up at the, make sure there was a bus, make sure everybody was on the bus, make sure they were all cleared, and we'd go on. And it's not like that any longer. So I think that's probably been the biggest change.
Well, what a great, support system that you have there in your district. Just great stuff. That's almost like a private school model that is into marketing and making sure that they have, those bells and whistles. Great stuff.
Yeah.
For our listeners, we have been visiting with Kinn Ashen, Certified Master Athletic Administrator at North Salinas High School. We're going to take a quick break and hear from our podcast sponsor, Violet Defense. Once again, Violet Defense is dedicated to protecting our world from germs by bringing the power of UV disinfection to everyday spaces. Their patented technology enables them to harness the power of the sun to incorporate ultraviolet light into products and environments like never before. Whether you're ready to implement existing products or you would like to explore researching and developing a custom deployment of the technology for your school, Violet Defense has the solutions and experience you need. Thanks again to Violet Defense for sponsoring the Educational AD Podcast. Welcome back, everyone. Gene, you've had some great experiences, college and at North Salinas. Certainly, you've been exposed to a lot of great programs. One of the things we try to do with the podcast is this idea of sharing best practices. So I'm going to put you on the spot for a second. What are a couple of best practices that you've seen either at your school or other schools, maybe initiatives that you've even come up with that you can share with our listeners? What sort of best practices do you have?
It's funny how things evolve throughout time. And so many things have changed since the beginning. Obviously, I think going paperless is a huge challenge for me. I have a 3-year calendar where I write everything down, and I use pencil, but we've gone paperless with eligibility. And our district, again, there's 5 of us here, 5 high schools, public high schools. And our district has supported us with home campus and getting everything onto home campus and athletic clearance. And that has made a huge difference for us. One of the things we're most proud of, the 5 of us here in Salinas, is adding unified sports. And we have had the best time. We have started off doing some unified soccer at one of our sites. We take our kids over, and what we have been using is we have used our modified physical education classes where a special needs student is matched up with 1 or 2 general education students, and we have started a basketball tournament. We go home and away, we play at lunchtime. So we've taken away the challenge with transportation, and transportation does this all out of the goodness of their heart, so no one is billed for anything. We have people who volunteer to keep the scoreboard and who officiate for us. But we play a unified basketball season that if you can't, maybe you have a little tear to your eye or your heart feeling like it's coming out of your chest, you need to add unified sports. We've got kids. I have a picture on my phone that I still have that I will never get away. And it's one of our general education students with his arm around one of our lowest special needs students that you would say, just in the hallway with his arm around this young lady, and just shows it. We've got so many kids. I really think the gen ed kids get so much more out of learning compassion and understanding and patience and some of those things. And I think that has been super special for us. And I think the other thing, best practice wide, is trying to meet the needs of kids in an ebb and flow. I think it's really a struggle sometimes, like, I've always had this, I've always had that. We started boys volleyball 3 years ago here at North Salinas High School. We had some little rumblings, a couple kids. I said, get me 10. Get me 10 boys who want to play boys volleyball, and we'll make it happen. I found a coach who would coach for free for the year, for the first year, my husband. And so Bill coached for the year, and then it became an official sport here. We've had boys tennis some years and not other years. We have field hockey, which is a very unique sport in our area, and we've had it for the last 50 years. It's been one of those stalwart sports here at North Salinas High School, And so I think it's important, as you look at things, sometimes we talk about, we got to survey the kids, we got to know. And the nice thing in our league now, with 34 schools, we're in an equity league, if we want to start something up, we can start. We have 5 different divisions, so you can go into a division that's appropriate for you at the level you're at. And I think that's been a real eye-opener for us, is having that flexibility to have one sport in the A division and one sport in the B and one in the C and one in the D. It's been challenging to learn how to coordinate, but it's gotten easier as time has gone on. And so I think looking to what the needs of the kids are, I think is really important for all of us too.
I love the unified, here in Florida, it's kind of spotty, but as a track and field official, we do have, the para games as part of our state tournament. And it's just great to work with that group of kids. And I love your point about adding sports, always, be on the lookout for those, new and developing sports. Great stuff. Jean, we recently passed the 1-year anniversary, I guess, of our podcast. And I've been asking athletic directors this question, which got its genesis, a year ago with the tragic events in Minneapolis and other parts of the country. It revolves around this idea of social awareness, social justice, if you will. And my question is this: what are some things that we can do as athletic administrators? What are some things that we can do better for our kids, our community? How can we do better at being socially aware?
Yeah, it's definitely been a sign this entire year, the 16 months of the pandemic and the social unrest, and so many things that were weighing on so many people's minds, I believe. One of the things for me personally is when things are going on, I think the beauty of the NIAAA is that they're always looking at ways to address current issues, and the NFHS learned too. So as soon as the class implicit bias became available on NFHS Learn, I follow them on Twitter and Instagram. As soon as I saw that, and I get the updates from Dan Schuster at the NFHS Learn, as soon as I saw that implicit bias class, I took it. And I believe that it's important for me, and in the place that I am in my life and in any life, is how do I express my care and concern for every student athlete and every coach and every community member that we have here. And even though this isn't a race related example, I'm going to give the example with a student athlete that we had here a few years back. This student athlete wanted to cheer and was a young man who was transitioning at the time and was struggling in school and wanted to become part of something. And so I sat down with him and his mother at the time and said, how can I help you make this happen? And what do you want to see? So it's so important, I think, to ask questions. He no longer wanted to be he. He wanted to be she. So that was important for me to hear and for me to know and to make sure that his mom was with me at the time. And, all of us got through this. And he also became a cheerleader, and he was an amazing cheerleader. And he decided he wanted to wear pants. And I said, all right, fine. You don't have to wear a skirt. I mean, why? I mean, every cheerleader's always worn a skirt. Big deal. So what? We got a cheerleader that wears pants now, So it was, I think we all, and I mean, I'm an older woman. I don't understand the struggles, but I remember what it was like in high school. I was 6'2" and 128 pounds. I came from a very small private Catholic school into this over 2,000 students. And I remember my first day of school being so scared and so out of place. And so what the heck, all the things, the Jolly Green Giant and all the things, that go with all of the things about being tall and gangly. And that's just a small speck compared to what some of our kids are going through. And we have an amazing JSA program on our campus that is really reaching and doing outreach within. And actually, the president of our JSA is going to Yale. And this guy is just an amazing, and and things keep on the forefront. And I think it's important our school has kept that in our time of, what did we call our, we had some time to make connections during the pandemic, where we all got together. And we all talked about those kind of things. How can we support? How can we be part of the solution? How can we show compassion? How can we show that? But I really think the most important thing is to ask questions. I think not to assume anymore, but I also like to assume positive intent. So at all times, I want to come from the fact that that person, wherever they're coming from, I'm trying to assume positive intent. It's so hard, I think, when we talk about social awareness to assume that, but we have to find out and find some common ground. I keep listening to, different podcasts of red and blue and Democrat and Republican, but we got to find some common ground that keeps us all together. And I think athletics is the perfect place to do that, because I wouldn't have had the same circle of people if I wouldn't have been in education at athletics, right? So when I was at UNLV and I roomed with people from all cultures, right? And I had to learn about, wow, how do you have to do that to your hair? I remember having that question with one of the girls on the road, Anita. What, really, you have to do that to your hair? She's like, yeah, can you imagine? But those kind of things are in sports all the time, right? And color is such a wide variety in athletics. I'm at a very Hispanic dominated school. And again, understanding the culture and being aware of what's important, I think is something for all of us to do in all of our lives, for our neighbors, getting just to know our neighbors.
You really hit it on the head. I appreciate you sharing that story. And you're absolutely right. Kids, people, they're going to find their tribe, they're going to find their gang, and sports just has that built-in ability to help kids connect and find that group to be a part of something, as we say, bigger than themselves. Great stuff. Let's lighten things up a little bit. I also asked this question, what's your favorite part of being an AD? And after about 60 or 70 interviews, almost every single response was, oh, it's the kids. And of course, we acknowledge that we love our kids, but what are some other things that get you excited about coming to North Salinas every day?
I have never had the same day twice, ever in my life. Since I have started as athletic administrator, I have never, ever, I make a lot of lists, I do a lot of things, but I've never had a day that I've had planned. I've never been able to say, oh, I came in, I did blank, 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 and blank, and I went home and all that got done. So I think one of the favorite parts of my job is the variety that we see all the time, the variety with coaches, the variety with kids. It was very easy. I wrote down in my notes here, watching student athletes compete is obviously everyone's favorite part of this job, but also watching their growth and their development. So they come in as this freshman that you're like, oh my gosh, and you see them walking down the aisle to pick up their diploma, and seeing that you had some little part in that process that happened, I think is obviously the piece. But definitely when you come in, you just don't know what's going to happen. And I think it's a real shot of adrenaline, excitement to have to be able to solve a challenge on the spot and try and do it in a respectful, professional manner, or try to diffuse something, you cannot, I keep saying I'm going to write a book when I'm done. Congratulations that you did actually write a book. But one of the titles was going to be, you can't make this blank up. Because there's so many things that happen in our jobs that people just don't understand. And the cool thing is, when you talk to other athletic directors, they're like, I know, can you believe that? But there's just so many things that happen, and it's so exciting. For me, I hope people have heard throughout this interview today is that I have never used the P word, and that word is problem. And I heard that at a national conference, and I took that away, and to this day, and people make fun of it here, and the kids know, oh yeah, Mrs. Ashen, I know it's a challenge. But when you hear the word problem, your head goes down, your body language is bad. Like when a coach walks into your office, you go, oh, I got a problem, right? What do? You're like, oh gosh, not again, really? But when I think of I have a challenge, I sit up straight, my shoulders go back, and I think to myself, I wonder how we can fix this. Oh, so you have a challenge with blank. Okay, what can we do to, how can we make this work? What are some of the other things? And so that made a real big difference to me. And again, another national conference, just a little nugget. And these little nuggets make such a difference in our lives. Like going back to when you talked about our teacher, right? Those little nuggets are the things that make a difference from our mom and our dad, right? Like for us, it was always play hard, have fun. That was what we told the kids, play hard, have fun. We have two amazing daughters who are amazing athletes and all those things, but was always play hard, have fun. And so I think that's part of your being. So just, there is no better job in the entire universe than being an athletic administrator. I believe that in my heart and soul. I believe it as I get up every morning and before 5 in the morning to make sure that I am ready to do this job. And there is just no better job in the world. I mean, maybe people say because I get a bunch of cool, like I got a Steelers helmet. I won a Steelers helmet at a national conference one year. That kind of stuff, they go, oh yeah, you get a cool shirt or you get a hat. Yeah. But it's just it is such an amazing job. And when you do it right, that it's making a difference on your campus.
Great answers. I just, found myself, chuckling a little bit inside because I say those same things. I get paid to do this. You got to be kidding me. So thanks for sharing that. Gene, this has been great. We get to see each other usually at nationals and sometimes those summer conferences in Indianapolis, but this has been fun, but we're not done yet. We always like to wrap up with what we call the athletic director's toolbox. Now, we've already established that you are certainly an experienced AD and award-winning AD, but right now I'm going to challenge you to send out a brand new athletic director on the very first assignment, but I'm only going to let you put 3 things in their toolbox. What 3 items are going to go in Kinn Ashen's athletic director toolbox?
So the first one is they have to become a member of all their organizations and they have to get certified. So they have to take an LTC class in their first year. And they have to get hooked into our professional community, and they have to meet the Jakes of the world and get a big hug in Denver. And they have to, I remember meeting Blaine Geisen for the first time from Hawaii because he was in our section. And I remember thinking to myself, wow, how cool is it to meet people like him when I come here to hear his paddling stories and his fun stories and all of those things. So number 1 is you have to become involved. You just have to become a member of the NIAAA, your state association. And if you have a local association, you have to become a member of those things. The second thing I put down is, and I'm not going to say the other one because network really fits into that, because I think network is part of that first one. The second one is to read and read more. When you first asked me to do this a couple months ago, Jake, I wrote down 1 Post-it on my desk. I hadn't been thinking about it or anything, but I wrote down lifelong learner. And I think that's one of the things I take the greatest pride in as an athletic administrator, is that I'm always looking to see what can help us here. My John Gordon books, I just ordered The Power of Positive Leadership, his latest book. I read all of those books and think about how can I become a better athletic administrator for coaches. Sometimes I'll say to them, on a card, can you write at the end of the year, write down 3 things you liked that I did and 3 things that you'd like I do better, or things that we haven't thought about yet that we should do, or something like that. So I want to say read and look to look to ask for help, get better, just look to expand your horizon. Don't just be the athletic director that sits in your office and tries to catch up on eligibility and grade checks and all of the things that you just want to go tear your hair out, right? So that would be number 2 for me. And then the other thing I decided to put in there for you today, Jake, and maybe it's a little non-traditional, and it goes back to my one word. So my one word this year is cherish. And I want to encourage athletic administrators and in our athletic community to appreciate all of the people that make an athletic program, from your groundskeeper to your plant foreman, to the athletic secretary who helps you with eligibility, to the chain crew, to the doctor who volunteers to be on the sideline on Friday night, to your spouse or your significant other who is there every day with you. My husband brings me lunch every day and has worked he's worked every single job. So have our 2 daughters. But I think the last thing, and I really think it is a tool, Jake. I think it is a tool, and I think so often we don't use it. I write a lot of thank you notes. I write thank you notes every week to someone or somebody. And not only do I write thank you notes, but Jake, you already know this, I bake a lot. And so I am known at the NIAAA circles for my peanut brittle and my things, but that is my way. It's my labor of love of showing appreciation. And I don't think we do that enough to people. And I'm not very good with my words in my spoken word to do that. I'm a little bit, that's just not my personality, but I'm very good at writing it down and telling you how much I appreciate it. And I'm very good at baking it because I have a ribbon from the Monterey County Fair that says I make good cookies. So I really believe that if you try to look outside, you're gonna be overwhelmed, and especially the rookies. I mean, I just want to tell you, we love you and stick with it. You're going to be fine. However, if you stay in your office or you stay on your campus, you're going to become overwhelmed, and you really want to look at ways to cherish the people who make this athletic. Yes, I'm the face. Everybody knows Mrs. Ashen. Everybody knows Mrs. Ashen. And I get teachers who walk up to me who've been here a few months. I don't know who else to ask. I'm just going to ask you, right? That's what an athletic director does. An athletic administrator has an answer. And if they come up to me, they say, can I ask you a question? I say, sure, I'll make up an answer because I'm going to figure it out. And they know I'm going to go the extra mile to figure it out for them and to get that information. So I would say to all of us, we need to cherish each other, and we need to show that appreciation in whatever way is best for you. And some people, I'm sure, are much better at the spoken word. I am not at that, but I've looked for ways to do that. And I save everything people give me. That's another thing. I have a binder. I mean, I save every LTC, every time I'm interviewed in a newspaper, every time something happens, I put it into a black binder. And it's behind me. It's very, very thick after 25 plus years now. But those treasures help me remember too when someone appreciates what I have done. And again, I believe that we are in the most selfless job in the world, that the people who are athletic directors are all people who want to make a difference on their campuses, and they're not doing it for the money. They're not doing it for the fame. They're not doing it for whatever. They're doing it out of a sense of education-based athletics is such an important part of our society. And we have to keep fighting the good fight about the treasure that we are entrusted with for 4 years here on our campuses. And so that's what I would say. I know it's not a specific tool. It's not an app. There's not an app for that. But I think we really all need to focus on that, especially after this pandemic. And I'll just say one more thing. I was listening to a podcast. The thing they were talking about was what has hurt us so much during the pandemic is we have not been allowed to use all 5 of our senses. So yes, we're talking by Zoom again. And I've gotten used to Zoom and it's better. The quality's better. The picture looks great. You look great, Jake. Your background looks great, but it's not the same as walking up and giving you a handshake or a hug. And so we haven't been able to use all of our senses. And so I think that's what's going to take us out of this pandemic, is getting back to a high five, getting back to a hug. We haven't touched each other in so long. I think, we played a football season. We played 4 games this year. And we weren't allowed to high five and, do all these other things. We were 6 feet apart. We were all this other, we're still playing football, but we're not allowed to do that. But I just think that we have to show appreciation for each other. And I really want to say how much I appreciate you even considering me having on Jake on the podcast. It's always a great honor to share with others. And I love listening to all of the different resources that we have as athletic administrators. I wish we had it when I had started. I wish I had been able to listen to the people who walked before me, right? The Bruce Whiteheads of the world, the people who made such a difference, in our lives. So it's great to have this venue, but it doesn't, make up for being in person. And I hope I get to see people in Denver this year.
Oh, well, first of all, thanks for, those kind words, and thanks for sharing those tools. Those were great tools. I love the thank you notes. I love your keyword cherish, reading. I love to read, lifelong learner, and certainly getting involved. Also about, the census. We here in Florida, we were able to have our state conference back in May in person. And it was just so great to be back and see people. And as you said, give them a handshake, give them a hug. Just to be there in that room with all those people, it was just fantastic. So I think you and I agree. We're both looking forward to doing that with everyone in Denver this coming December.
Yeah, I hope we're in San Diego in April for us. We haven't been together in California, so we shut down early and we opened up late. But hopefully that makes a difference here, and hopefully we're all back together.
Okay. Gene, if one of our listeners wanted to reach out and pick your brain, what's the easiest way for them to get a hold of you?
They can email me anytime. I take great pride in answering emails on a daily basis. That's another thing. So definitely by email. I don't care if people have my cell. It's 831-578-8259. So anybody can text, or I actually I had an email this morning from a gentleman that heard on the podcast that I had done with Patrick Cohan. Right. And he asked me about the app we're using for checking kids in. And so I will respond to that and tell him about the green screen that we're now using for COVID check-in for our athletic summer practices, which has made our lives so much easier, developed by one of our assistant principals. And so those kind of things, I'm happy to help anyway. If you just get on North Salinas High School's website in Salinas, California, it's the most beautiful place on the earth. That's where you get all your lettuce and artichokes and strawberries and cauliflower and broccoli from. We live in the most beautiful place on earth. I wear shorts. Well, like you, Jake, I wear shorts 365 days a year. It's between 50 and 70 here every single day in Salinas. So they can get onto to our website, and my email's on there. And again, I will respond to anyone and everyone anytime, because people did that for me too. So it's a way to give back.
You did get that plug in for the North Salinas Chamber of Commerce there. So, so well done. Kinn Ashen, North Salinas High School. Thanks so much for being on.
Thank you so much for having me, Jake.
For our listeners, remember the Zoom recordings of these interviews are being uploaded to the FIAAA website on YouTube. Thanks for listening. Come back again next time for another episode of the Educational AD.